Hello everyone, how's it going? And welcome to another update video on Yooka-Laylee. This one is the green and purple patch update that was put up on the Playtonic Games website. It just maybe like an hour ago or something, I don't know. Posted June 6th, there you go. Wasn't it June 7th though? Actually, I don't know. Anyway, so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go through this like little update a bit, and I'm going to tell you more about what does any of this actually mean for the game, how does any of this stuff actually translate into the game, why is it important, why is some stuff maybe not quite as important, and we're just going to take a look at that, and I'm going to guide you through it, and I'm going to tell you what I think of all of that stuff as a speedrunner as well. So first off, we have a little bit of an intro where they say that apparently they're not going to be at E3. Now, there was a little bit of there were some rumors going around that with the new patch they were gonna wait until the Switch version releases, and then they're gonna release the new update together with the Switch release, so that they could say like, hey guys, the Switch release is gonna have the new update on it, whoa, isn't that great? And we also thought that they were gonna talk about that during E3, because Nintendo sometimes has a little bit of a slideshow during one of the presentations, or when they talk about stuff afterwards, the trios or whatever, where they're like, hey guys, there's some indie stuff that's coming as well, and they show some indie stuff. And we thought that maybe Yooka-Laylee was gonna have stuff in there where they're gonna say, okay, Yooka-Laylee with the new patch or something, like a little slide with that just says that Yooka-Laylee is coming to Switch and it includes the new patch, and that would kind of have been the confirmation that, oh yeah, the patch is gonna come somewhere around the time where the Switch version releases. However, that seems to not be the case. There might still be a mention of Yooka-Laylee during some Nintendo stuff, but they won't actually be doing anything at E3 like themselves, apparently. And also the patch seems to be a bit different from the Switch release. Like, they're probably going to release sooner than the Switch release, it seems. We don't know when Switch release is going to come, but it seems like the patch is going to come before that, so no worries about that. Now, most importantly though, the actual changes, and we can see the GIF, or GIF, you can say either way, doesn't matter, of the new camera controls. We already saw that for the other updates, so nothing new here. What is new is that this screen right here is apparently now a thing, and I'm going to talk a bit more about that once we get to it, because it's not actually mentioned in any of these paragraphs, so it's going to come a bit later. So they first talk a bit about, yeah, we wanted to patch all this time, don't worry, and it's going to come later this month on PC, which is, for people are still a bit salty about it, because when the first update came out, which is over a month ago, they said like, oh yeah, in the coming weeks. It's gonna be in the coming weeks. And people were like, okay, maybe like 2 or 3 weeks, so now we're gonna know a bit more about it, but it's been like 5 or 6 weeks or something since till then. Maybe even longer, I don't quite know. And now we still have to wait multiple weeks again, so whatever. At least we know it's coming, and we've got a bit better of a time frame this time. And this, I think this paragraph right here is almost a one-to-one copy from their other news section that they had like a month ago, but whatever, it doesn't matter. So they had a bunch of more feedback that they read, maybe even some of mine feedback, because we're gonna come to the actual stuff that they have changed down here. Oh, look at that sound, or listen to that sound rather. So a lot of the stuff that's gonna be down here is stuff that I also mentioned. I don't think they mentioned they listened to me specifically. I mean, obviously they would listen to a lot of people, but I don't know if they ever even noticed any of my videos, because my videos have like almost no views on them, so the chance, and my streams as well, so the chance that some of the stuff in here was inspired by some of the stuff I said is almost zero, but I'd like to think that they might have listened to me. I like to think that, because it makes me feel better. Yay. Anyway, so they just don't beat around the bush too long and just say, okay guys, this is the stuff that's gonna happen in this update. First I'm gonna have the pause music, I'm gonna listen to it. Just a second. Oh. Isn't that nice? That's the pause music. I think it's It's alright. It's a pretty good pause music, I think. Does its job pretty well. I don't think it was something that was very important that was missing, but it's good that it's there. It's definitely good that it's there and that they've added it in. And it's definitely, I mean, if they were debating maybe like releasing the game later because of the pause music, then I would have been like, yeah, you can ship it without the pause music. It's totally fine. It doesn't matter too much. Of course, there's other stuff where you could say, well, there's this other stuff that maybe you should have delayed the game a bit for, but that's something completely different. It doesn't matter. Anyway, pause music, that's good. Also have the optional camera mode with minimal assist. So it seems like either the new camera controls that they talked about in this GIF up there, and also in the stuff in the text that they talked about it, maybe all of that is just optional, so it's not actually an upgrade to how the base camera functions. We don't quite know that's exactly what it's gonna be like, but they talk a bit more about the camera stuff down here as well, I think. So yeah, it seems like there are some changes to the way the basic camera works, and then I guess on top of that there's also a new camera mode that you can activate in your settings, I guess, where it turns off some of the assist that it might put on you. And I've mentioned this in my other update video and during my, I don't know if it was during my review as well, or at least during my streams and stuff, where I talked about how sometimes the camera, like for the most part the camera works alright, but then there are some points where you get to specific locations and the game like arrests the camera control from you and puts the camera in a very specific location. Now that in itself is not specifically bad. Like for example, if you're jumping for like a 2D section that's like inset in a wall, then you could be like, oh yeah, I would like to have a static camera on the side of that, like I was playing Donkey Kong Country for a second. Like that's totally fine. I don't need like a 3D camera for that. That's a bit weird. But for one, there's also other locations where the camera is a bit awkward, where it doesn't quite fit, and for the most part, the problem that comes with some of this stuff where the camera control gets wrested from you is if you get to a location where the camera just suddenly shifts and you don't really realize that, oh, in this location the camera is gonna shift. So you just walk around happily, jumping around, and suddenly, boom, the camera shifts, and you're like, whoa, what's going on? And it might also be that if you're like doing stuff with your control stick during that, then you might suddenly run in a completely different direction. You might jump off a cliff accidentally, maybe not a cliff, but you might accidentally go into a completely different direction than you might want to. You might accidentally walk into an enemy, that's more likely. Yeah, some weird stuff could happen, so I guess the new camera mode might help with that, but I'm not quite sure exactly how it would do that. So we just need more info on that. Like the camera stuff is stuff that we're just gonna have to see like in the actual game while we play. Like this GIF is a good help, but we need to like play it and figure out exactly how it works to get a good look at how good it actually is, or if it actually is that much of a help at all. We don't know. Another thing we have is more signposts and high towers to help players go to new worlds. I mean, I personally thought that it was fairly natural how you get from level to level. Like, when you come in first, okay, there's one path. Well, okay, you could say there's two paths, but if you go up the ramp on the side, you come to a door that's closed and there's a button next to it, you can't press the button. Okay, the only other way that you could possibly go leads to the first world. When you come out of that first world, that's a dead end. So you have to go back, open the door with the button, and then you come to the second world, where it's like, okay, that's another path, but there's like doors that are like blocked. There's a bit of, that's just very, very obvious dead ends, where it's like, okay, you do need other moves. And it's also fairly obvious that, oh shit, there's a stage over there, because I can see the ice and snow stuff from the distance, and it's like the only way you can go to. Same with World 3, same with World 4. I feel like it does naturally guide you from world to world, while at the same time encouraging a bit of exploration. Like in my review of the hub world, like my in-depth level design series, where in part 6 I talked about the hub world, I thought it did a good job of naturally guiding you from stage to stage, and it was fairly obvious which direction you could go in. So I don't know if those signposts are really needed, but then I guess if you are a company that deals with stuff like that and you get feedback of players saying, hey guys, I think that it wasn't very obvious to see where to go, in which case if I was a level designer at that point, I'd be like, well, maybe you just suck as a player. Like, I mean, that's stuff that you have to bring up as a game designer. I mean, I'm not gonna fault them for putting in the signpost. I think that's something that you can do. It solves a problem, and I don't think it's bad in itself, because signposts don't really hinder you if you don't use them. They're completely optional to look at. So I don't think it's bad to have signposts, but the thing is, just in general, sometimes when you design games, sometimes you might just want to tell the players that, man, maybe you guys just need to use your brain a bit more, or maybe you need to look at your surroundings a bit more. I know it's a very elitist attitude. I don't give a shit. I don't fucking. That's just me. That's just me though. Like I said, it's not bad that they added the signposts in, because if you don't look at them, they don't do anything. So you can just walk past them. Doesn't matter. Anyway, next up, design tweaks to all arcade games. What design tweaks though? So that's really important, because what's wrong with the arcade games is very specific things that I think they could have mentioned here. But maybe they changed a lot of stuff surrounding it, so maybe they didn't quite want to mention it, or maybe the stuff that they changed just isn't actually that important. I don't know. So the thing with the arcade games is the gameplay within the arcade games is not that interesting. Like playing the helicopter game for the was it the Galaxy arcade game, or in the Ice Magic Palace, where you play the arcade game where you just run around some ice part and you just pick up some quills. I don't think a lot of that gameplay is very engaging, and you do a lot of it, at least comparatively to the rest of the game, where it's like, okay, doing one of those arcade games once takes 2 minutes for a pagey, and then you do the same thing again for another 2 minutes. It's a total of 4 minutes, with the stuff in between, like cutscenes and stuff, and going out and talking to the guy, going back in, blah blah blah. Maybe you can say that it takes a total of 5 minutes for those 2 pages. 5 minutes for 2 pages is among the slowest pages in the game. Like, if you were to look at every single page in the game and how long it takes to get them, then 2.5 minutes for 1 page is really slow, actually. It's actually really slow, for a speedrun at least. So it is actually one of the arcade ones. I mean, you also have to see that on top of that, you also have to get a play coin. You have to get the play coin somewhere in the level. You have to get that play coin to the guy, talk to him, all that stuff surrounding it. So it's even more than 2.5 minutes for one of those pages. You could argue that maybe it's like 3.5 minutes for 1 page. Oh my god, that's so slow actually for a speedrun. So a lot of the gameplay in there is fairly repetitive. You have to do it for quite some time. Not actually that much interesting stuff happens, and you have to do it twice, even if you get the high score on the first time, which I think is the biggest problem for a speedrun. You have to do it twice, even if you get the high score on the first one. And I think that's something that they could really do, and it would help a lot. That would help a lot, actually. Like, cut the time that it takes for one of these pages in half. Which, by the way, if you're interested in speedruns, like the 100-page speedrun, even if they were to do that, though, where they say, okay, if you have to play the game only once, and if you get the high score, you get 2 pages at once, a lot of the arcade games would still be too slow to include in a 100-page speedrun, funnily enough. Maybe we could include Cardos carding, because the play coin is right next to it, or fairly close to it at least, and the carding can be done fairly quick. Like, that's one way you could say, okay, maybe we can do that, but for a lot of the other arcade games, I don't think it's actually worth it, funnily enough. But yeah, anyway, so that's something that's like the biggest thing that they could do for that, where they just say like, okay, play it once, get the high score, get 2 pages, done. Done. You don't have to play it twice. If you want to, you can still play it multiple times, of course. I don't know why you'd want to, because I think, like I said earlier, the gameplay is not that interesting, but if you want to, you can play it multiple times. You can play it multiple times in the arcade section in Hybrid Towers if you want. You can do that as well. So, yeah. I hope they do that. Another thing that they could do is where they say, okay, we make the games more interesting without making them harder. Like, maybe they could say that, I don't know, they could add more stuff. Like, let's say we have the Capital Casino arcade game. They add more stuff to do in that arcade game. Like, make it so the speed up and slow down that you can do actually have more of a meaning. Because the speed up, it shoots you forward, then you slow down again until you reach the bottom of the screen again. So it's fairly pointless. I don't know. Maybe they add something where that makes more sense. They could add some more different obstacles that are maybe not that difficult to get across, but maybe more fun to get across, I don't know. And they could like have the controls play into that, like, okay, like here's a wall that you have to dash through or something like that. I don't know, just basic stuff, anything, just add anything to it. But at the same time, they could be like, okay, we make the whole thing shorter. Make the whole thing shorter a bit, maybe have it not go on for like 3 minutes or something. And if you beat the high score once, you get both pages. That would be some really nice changes, and I think people would like that. I think people would like that a lot. And if you want to say that, oh, but that makes the arcade game too fast, too quick, not enough gameplay, you can just play it again in the arcade section in Highway Towers, or you can just play it again right there, so you still have the content there. It's okay. Anyway, so that's all the arcade game stuff, design tweaks that I want to see, but I really don't know what they're actually gonna do. They might also make the high scores lower, or make it so that when you get hit, you don't actually lose as many quills in all of these arcades. For example, in the Capital Casino or the Galleon Galaxy arcade game, you lose a ton of quills if you get hit, depending on how many quills you have. Like if you have a ton of quills and you get hit, you lose a ton of quills, which could be really bad if you get hit like once towards the end of the entire thing. And then it's like, okay, I got hit once, which is not that bad, but because it was at the end, now I can't win anymore, and that feels really bad. So they could change something like that as well. I don't know. I talked a lot about the first 4 or 3 points, but I think the next ones are going to go a lot faster. Speed improvements going through tutorials menu. When I played the game, that was something that I immediately noticed, that in Banjo-Kazooie and Tooie it went really fast to scroll through the tutorials menu, but for some reason in here it took really long to get through each page of the tutorial menu, and I don't know why. I don't know why, because what is it loading? What is it loading? Is it doing that many like database stuffs? I don't really know. So yeah, that's faster, that's good. This music is getting really loud suddenly. There we go. Anyway, getting even louder. I don't know how loud it's going to be in the recording, so I'm just going to do that for safety. New option for shorter gibberish voices. Okay. Not something that I personally thought was important, but other people did, so it's a good inclusion. It's a good inclusion, because some people really didn't like it, and I guess that sort of helps with it. And what also helps with it, that is the ability to reduce speech volume, which I think is also okay. Those are good inclusions for that. Also have the ability to speed through dialogue by holding Y. Ah, nice. First off, the fact that you go by holding down a button is so nice, because when you speedrun the game and you have something that you do, like, you know, if I can show it, like when I smash through the button, what I do is I like cramp my finger, like I cramp it like this, and I like vibrate a bit like that, like I vibrate my hand over it, and it mashes at like 12 presses a second. I think that's something I can get, like somewhere between 10 and 12 presses per second, which is pretty good. But the thing is, because I cramp my hand to do it like that, that's not very nice for doing it very much. Doing that a lot hurts. A lot. and it like a tendon start hurting. Oh, it's not very nice. There's another mashing where you kind of ease up on the cramping, and you just mash it like this normally. Some other things you can do is you can have other buttons be designated for that as well. Now, that's something that usually happens in Toy Box, where you said, okay, I'm gonna put another button like up here. That's also jump now. That's also jump, and you can press both buttons at the same time to mash faster. Now, in the full game, since every single button does something, you can't quite do that. Though in theory, you could bind one of the buttons down here, because they're just for emoticon stuff. You can just do that if you wanted to. But now, if you just hold down, you can just hold down a button, and that does it. Ah, isn't that great? So, no more carpal tunnel. Well, I didn't get carpal tunnel, but I would have got carpal tunnel if I did it anymore. So that's good. No more that stuff. You just hold down a button and it goes really fast. Oh, isn't that great? Unless people find out that you can hold down the button and mash at the same time to make it go faster, please make sure that's not a thing. Because if that's a thing, that would be terrible. Because mashing with this, mashing like this, hurts even more. So yeah, just make sure that just holding on the button is the fastest it can possibly go, and then we're all fine. That's all good. The button also skips cutscenes, so imagine I start a new run, bam, cutscene skip. Oh, done. Isn't that great? That's gonna be really nice. So yeah, that's that. And just in general, that you can now skip through dialogue faster. I mean, in my opinion, what I said during my review as well and during the speedruns is that if you mash, you don't have to mash as fast as I'm doing. Like, you don't have to like cramp your finger to do it really fast. You can just mash it like maybe like 6 or 7 presses per second to do it fairly quickly, because most of the time spent in dialogue is dialogue box appearing and disappearing. That's where a lot of time is spent when you talk to people. So if that also goes faster, that would be really nice. But the thing is, even if that doesn't go faster with this update, like if the disappearing and appearing of the text boxes still takes quite some time, I'm still okay with that. As long as we're like, okay, everyone's gonna have to deal with that and everyone's gonna have the same amount of time spent on text boxes now, and you don't have to mash, even slowly, you can just hold on a button. Oh, great. Next up, cutscene skips, of course. The one thing, like if you've watched any speedrun, talked to any speedrunner, watched any of my videos surrounding Yooka-Laylee, anything that has to do with Yooka-Laylee speedrunning anywhere, you'll be like, oh yeah, cutscene skip is that big thing that everyone is talking about, and it's really important, and it's happening, and it's gonna be really great. It's gonna be great. So what else do we have? We have new move section added to pause menu. That's the thing we have up here, which we'll talk about later. So now in the pause menu, apparently you can go into a menu that shows you all the moves you've gotten and how to use that move, and at the same time, apparently they also made it so you can now play the game with keyboard and mouse more correctly. So the thing is, I know there were some keyboard buttons already bound, but I heard from people saying that you cannot actually play the game correctly with mouse and keyboard because maybe some moves are missing or some moves aren't bound correctly. I don't know. I haven't tried it myself, so I can't say for sure what was actually going on there. But if the game was not actually playable with mouse and keyboard, now it definitely will be. So players that don't have a controller, you can look forward to that. It's gonna be great. Sorry. So camera design improvements, that was the other stuff I talked about, where there's apparently also more like basic improvements to the camera that are not part of the new optional camera mode, apparently. So less scripted cameras, that's what I was talking about earlier, where the camera gets like yanked away from you and like put into a specific location, which in some places is really nice, but in other places can be a bit boring, not boring, but a bit weird, and the transition can be off. So I assume what they do is they look at places where the quickly changing camera can be a problem, or it doesn't quite feel right and feel too well, and they're like, okay, instead of trying to make the scripted camera somehow work by changing some stuff around, we're just gonna make it so that location just doesn't have a scripted camera anymore. Just doesn't have it anymore, and that's gonna be fine. And I think that's a good change. Next up, also door cams now appear behind the player. Now when I first read this, I wasn't quite sure exactly what they meant with this, because what exactly is the door cam? But I think what they mean is when you go through a door, which is like one of these like teleporters where you go through some area, it like fades to black and then it fades back in again from black. And I think what they mean is that when it usually fades back in from black, the camera shows the door, like it shows you walking out of the door towards the camera. But now what they're going to do instead probably is that when you walk out of that door, the camera is not going to show you walking out of the door and you having you walk towards the camera, but rather the camera will be behind you. So you can immediately like press forward while walking out of the door, and your controls are gonna be correctly on point without having to worry about the camera swinging 180 and then having to readjust your controls. Which is something that I personally don't have any problems with because I've done it in so many games. Like, I've done it so many times in my life that I really don't have a problem anymore and don't even notice it. Like, if I hadn't read this section right here and you asked me what door cams were like, I couldn't even tell you what door cams were like because I just don't even notice that stuff anymore. But I think that's better for newer players or for players that aren't quite used to like the camera looking like that and then swinging around 180. So that's a good change. But it's not something that was like paramount to do. but it's a good change still. Another thing, restart option added in the pause menu during arcade games and college challenges. Very important right here, because in a lot of arcade games, first off, if you know you can't beat the high score anymore, why would you want to continue? But the thing is, since there is no restart option, you have to continue or back out of the stage entirely, which I think you can do, like back to menu or something, which is terrible. But now you don't have to do that. You can just press restart. Oh, great! Something that if I was a game tester, like if I tested a game, something that I would have mentioned immediately, or if I was a game designer designing this, I would have also noticed this immediately. But then again, we don't know how exactly their game design process works, so I can't say anything about that. So because I just don't know what it's like working at Playtonic. Another thing is the colors challenges. Another thing where, yeah, at some point you're gonna like fail something. You're like, I can't beat the high score anymore. I can't beat the score anymore that I need to beat. Why even continue? But I need to wait until I can kill myself so I can start over. But now you don't have to do that. You can just restart. Yeah, isn't that great? Also something, the sonarable objects now have a more clear visual identity. For one, I think that means objects that can be hit with the sonar shot, as well as objects that are destroyed by sonar explosion. And I think that's an important change because a lot of people really didn't quite know which objects to use which move on. And now, I always said this before, that Yooka-Laylee is a game where something that looks like glass or ice can be destroyed in 5 different ways, and it's always the way you check last. But at least if sonarable objects now are more clearly visible to people, at least you can see that either it is sonar move or it's not a sonar move, so at least it's better in that regards. And at the same time, if something requires sonar shot, it's gonna probably be more obvious now. That might not have been before, so that's a good thing for game design. I don't know, thing is, people that have already played it and had those gripes with the game, now that they've played through the game, that change doesn't do anything for them anymore. Like, for everyone that's played through the game, this change does nothing, but at least for new players that haven't played the game before, it's gonna be nicer for them. It's gonna be greater for them. People are playing games outside. I'm gonna join them, but first this is more important than playing games outside. I'll do that later. Anyway, what else do we have? The laser move no longer requires players to crouch. I think what they mean by that is, the thing is, there's not actually a laser move in the game, like it's an actual move, but rather if you are invisible with the, what is it? I don't know what it's called. The move that makes you invisible. And if you use that and you crouch near specific light or lasers, you can redirect that light as a laser somewhere else, and it's required in some areas of the game. And I think what they mean like here is, okay, in order to redirect this light or these lasers, you don't have to be crouching, you can just stand. Which is good, because it means that if players are like just mucking around with that move in like the last room of the Isometric Palace, which is where most people have problems with that move, because they don't realize this is what they have to do with that light. If they like muck around in that room with that invisibility move and they accidentally walk through the light, then they're gonna be like, oh my god, if I walk through the light, it's gonna do stuff. Oh, that's incredible. Because now what you have to actually do is you have to be not just invisible, but also be crouching in that light, which might be a problem for some people. So yeah, that's good. That's a good addition. That's gonna help people that haven't played the game before. So that's good. Minecart control improvements and new visual effects. The visual effects, I don't know. I don't know. I have nothing to say about that. The control improvements. This is something that I was talking about. Like, one half of why the minecart sections are, in my opinion, so badly done is one of the controls. The other half was the way the camera works, and that you cannot quite plan ahead. Like the thing about the minecart is, well, I guess actually that's 2 in 1, because the thing is, if you look at the Minecraft section, you see your Minecraft rolling around. The thing is, because of your controls, if you do a jump, there's a certain arc to it, there's a certain recovery time from it, which is almost 0, and if you jump over multiple things, you get into a certain jumping rhythm with your spacing. If you do any of your moves, like shooting, like speeding up, like slowing down, you have a cooldown on those moves. The cooldown between speeding up and slowing down is shared. And because of these cooldowns and the way the jumping works and everything, in here works and how the obstacles are presented to you and how the obstacles have to be tackled, it's important to plan ahead. And because of the camera and the cooldowns on the moves and how everything works together, like because of how the entire big picture looks like rather, you can't really plan ahead well enough. And because you can't plan ahead well enough, it's extremely easy to get destroyed in these sections. And it's not even that much your fault, because you like see an obstacle and you decide to use your cannon on it. But then you turn around a corner and suddenly you see another section where it's really important to use the cannon, but it's now on cooldown. So what do? Or you see a place where it's like, oh, maybe it's nice if I could jump over these. I could maybe jump over these without speeding up, or I'm gonna do it with speeding up because it makes it easier. And I think it's a good use of that ability. But then you speed up over it, and then you turn around a corner, and then you need to slow down. But now you can't slow down because you sped up before. So if they improve the controls, where they say, okay, we're gonna maybe have speed up and slow down not share a cooldown, or we're gonna reduce the cooldown on those abilities, or make the moves a bit more responsive in, like, for example, the shot. Because if you're jumping or going around the corner, the shot just goes completely all over the place. So you have to be very straight with your shot for it to actually hit anything. And then also, if you're too close to something and you shoot something, there's like a few frames in the destruction. Let's say you shoot a barrel. There's a few frames in the destruction of the barrel, like the very first few frames, where you can still get hit. So if you shoot a barrel from close range, you can still get hit by the barrel, which is a bit weird. Anyway, so if they improve those controls like I mentioned, then maybe everything's gonna be a bit nicer. But if the camera still doesn't quite show you what's ahead, it might still rub a few people the wrong way. But at least the controls would be a really nice help, and it would help a lot. Especially for players that kind of have a feeling for how the stage looks already. So if you kind of know how the stage looks like, if you know where all the stuff is, then having the controls be really nice helps a lot. And it would help a lot. So hopefully it does that stuff, and that would be really great. For transformation control improvements, I hope they mean the reasonably priced car in the Yooka-Laylee Glacier, because that's one of the ones where it's like, okay, controls like a truck, which makes sense because it is a truck. But that's really bad because you need to do jump and run stuff with it, and go around tight corners when you have to go up the icy platform stuff. Which is weird, because yeah, it controls like a truck, but you have to do jump and run stuff. It doesn't fit together. It doesn't fit together. So either you don't require the jump and run stuff, or you make controls better. Apparently they decided to make controls better. So that's a good thing. I don't know if they make stuff differently for other transformations as well, because I thought the other transformations had really good controls. They had good controls, and it was just the reasonably priced car where I thought that was really badly done controls. Plus we have improved first-person aim controls. I know a lot of people said they didn't like the first-person aim controls. I personally didn't have a problem with it, but if some people have a problem with it and you make them better, and those people don't have a problem with it anymore, that's fine. That's good. So that's good. What else do we have? New first-person aiming control options. I don't know what exactly those options are, so I can't say anything about that. Improved flying controls. Now, for the flying controls, the thing was that if you're speedrunning the game, usually you use flying for getting from point A to point B really fast, or getting up someplace really fast. And because you're mostly going straight or just in very slight corners, you don't really have to worry about your controls screwing you over that much. But if you accidentally do something wrong, or you have to readjust, or you're doing some weird movement, then it can actually be really weird with the controls, because the controls are fine if you're going straight. As soon as you go around a corner or try and do some very precise movements around tight corners, suddenly things go wrong. Because in order to go around the corner, you want to like pull the control stick back a little bit, so you slow down a bit. So you want to slow down, then go around the corner. But if you hold the control stick back to slow down, it also makes you lose height, and the camera goes above you and looks down. And then the controls also work in the way that If you go around the corner and then go left and right, it feels like you're pulling a weight behind you. And if you go around the corner, that weight gets swung around you and like drags you along. That's how it feels like to control the aerial movement around corners. And that's why some precision movement can be really hard with the flying controls. And I hope they do stuff about those things. And if they do that, then maybe flying can be really good for newer players as well. So I hope they improve they do meaningful improvements there. And that's good. That's going to be hopefully great. Well, as we're transformed collecting butterfly, it's now restore energy. I've never had to deal with anything like this, so I can't really comment on that. But I guess it's good. I guess it's good. But I don't really know when that would happen. I guess it's okay though. Now, Hunter Tonics now tracks the last 30 kills and casino tokens, in addition to the health and power extenders. It also whistles at the location of the closest rare collectible. That's just a buff to Hunter Tonic, and a buff to Hunter Tonic is nice, because I've mentioned a lot in my level design of Yooka-Laylee series that some collectibles are just very unfortunately placed, or the design philosophy on the placement of these just isn't on point. And I guess if you don't want to go through the game and like change how every single collectible is placed, which would also require some changes in the level geometry, in my opinion, and also it would also require some changes on what pirates treasures do. Maybe you need to add a new category of collectibles. You would have to do so many changes to like fix all of that. So instead they're like, okay, we're just gonna buff the Hunter Tonic to help out a lot more, and that's gonna be great. I really need to get out there. Let's finish this shit. Okay, last we have Health UI is now always visible when low. That's great. That's great. That's a nice change. Design tweaks in various areas, Black Hole in one, Gloomy Chen Grotto. I don't know exactly what they're gonna change here. The thing about Gloomy Chen Grotto is that on a lot of monitors and a lot of like basic monitor settings, Gloomy Gem Grotto is not actually that dark that you would need to illuminate it. Like when I first played through the game, it was possible for me to go through the entire thing without using the berry, because it just wasn't that dark. It just wasn't that dark on my monitor. So maybe they're gonna make it darker, but maybe in turn make the illuminating berry brighter, so you get a better contrast and a better view of your surroundings, because now you can't see in the distance anymore. But I don't know exactly what they're gonna do there. Also, I don't know what they're gonna do in Black Hole in one. Maybe remove some of the enemies or put them in better spots. Put some more railings towards the start where enemies can very easily knock them off for no reason. I don't know what they're gonna do there. So because I don't know what they're gonna do there, I can't really tell you guys anything about it. I can add for keyboard and mouse controls. I think that's just for the stuff up here in the section. And I think also when you play through the game and you like learn a new move, I guess now when you learn a new move, it's gonna show you what the keyboard controls are on screen as well. I guess, I don't know. Improved Rampo boss fight. I have no idea how they improved that. Maybe they're gonna make it more obvious where logs are gonna appear, or they're gonna slow down the logs or improve the spacing between the logs, make it so it's easier to jump over the logs. I don't know what they're gonna do with that. Personally, I would hope for something that would make speedrunning easier, which is so that you could more easily save yourself when he tries to blow you off the platform. I don't think they're gonna do anything about that, because why would they? Why would they introduce something that's pretty much a skip for speedrunners? That's really odd. So I think they're just gonna make the whole climbing up to Rampo experience nicer, but I don't know. I'm just speculating at this point. Added PC display settings to the in-game pause menu. Now there are display settings, or some of them, but they are not in the in-game menu. They are in the menu for before you start the game, when you're in your main menu, like before you select the file. Like that's where you like select all your stuff like VSync. Oh, VSync is very important for speedrunning, because in a lot of places VSync has different, like, different influences on what's happening. Like the Crazy Kirkhope page is faster on specific VSync settings. Clipping through walls is easier on specific VSync settings, and there's one VSync setting where Crazy Kirkhope is a lot slower, but clipping through walls is harder. And then there's another one where clipping through walls is easier, but Crazy Kirkhope is a lot faster. And I think there's some other stuff in there as well that's changed a bit by VSync. We're not entirely sure exactly what is like all of the stuff that's going to be different with VSync, but we know that VSync does have some important changes if it's on and off, or if it's on half VSync. And I think the reason for that is people say that because of it changes how the FPS behaves, and the FPS is the main culprit of why stuff like that is different. So yeah, now that you can change it in game, hopefully you can change VSync in game during a run, and that would make it so you could slow down Crazy Kirkhope and then change the VSync setting to have easier clipping. We don't know if that's going to be a thing. Hopefully not. Hopefully they just fix the entire VSync or FPS issue rather, just completely, but I don't think that's going to happen. At least they didn't mention it here. Or actually they said performance improvements, but we don't know how exactly those performance improvements are going to look like, and if those performance improvements are going to have an impact on how that whole FPS thing is going to look like. So we don't know if those performance improvements don't just make the game run overall faster, but also make it so that the stuff happens differently at different FPS and different settings. Stuff is fixed as well. That would be great. It also has audio improvements, but I don't know what exactly they mean with that, so I can't really say anything about that. They also said some other stuff. A new guy joins. This is nothing else to do with speedrunning, so... Okay, actually the Switch version might have specific stuff to it for speedrunning, but since the PS4 version and the Xbox One versions don't have different stuff in between them, as far as I know, I don't think the Switch version is going to have anything special as well, so... also community highlights. I was a bit sad that they didn't mention any of my level design stuff, but at the same time my level design videos have like 100 views on each of them, and they are also fairly critical of the game. And something that doesn't have many views and is also critical of the game, I think that's not something that they're gonna highlight. At least I didn't think so. So even while I'm sad that I didn't include it, even though I also emailed them about it, which I didn't write anything back. I wrote this long email telling them about all the stuff that I've done, and I wanted to hear back from them what they thought about it, like some feedback or I don't know, anything. Didn't write anything back. So yeah, I totally understand why that would never be here. And even though I know that it would never ever be here, because why the fuck would it? It would still be great if it was. I guess that's all I have to say. Let me dream, guys. Let me dream, guys. I want to dream. I want to believe. I want to believe. So yeah, that's all the stuff that's happened. Oh my god, how long is this video? This video is way too long. Can I open my OBS for a second? Yeah, I think I can. 42 minutes? Are you... what? Or 40 minutes, I don't know if the start of that was bloopers. So yeah, that was a long as fuck video. So that was that. If you guys want to see more Yooka-Laylee content, I would tell you guys to subscribe, and I do want you guys to subscribe. The thing is, I don't know how much more Yooka-Laylee content there's going to be until the patch actually comes out. So the patch is going to come out at some point, and after that you're going to see a lot more Yooka-Laylee content. But in the time leading up to the patch, there might not be any actual Yooka-Laylee content. But I guess if you want to see more of me in general, and want to stay tuned for when the patch actually hits and when the new content actually starts rolling in, definitely subscribe. And if you like that, you will like as well. Tell me in the comments what you thought about it, and yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys next time.